the institutions are not as strong. It's more, there's corruption is a lot more common and more obvious, I'm going to say, because I think there's a little bit of corruption everywhere. And this is the sort of places where on-chain organizations really make sense, because even if the country, something happens and then you have a dictator, cannot take away the resources of the country.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Screen with Gramajo, the podcast where we unravel the stories, the insights, the secrets of top-tier artists, avid collectors, and innovative builders shaping the digital frontier, better known as Web3. I'm your host, Gramajo, an avid crypto enthusiast that's been in the space since 2012. Yeah, welcome back to another episode. Excited to be doing this one with you guys. This week I sat down with Palmera, which is co-founded by Jose and Andy, two Latino Americans in Switzerland, and they're pretty much trying to tackle on-chain organization and mobilization and the tooling on it while using other apps in the ecosystem. So essentially, as a user of an on-chain organization, you would just show up to their app, and you could plug and play into a bunch of other different kind of tools available to you to make the operations and the running of your on-chain organization more effective. So really learned a lot about DAOs, on-chain organizations, communities, what they're up to. And yeah, it was a great talk, so I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, so we could start with intros. Why don't you kick us off, Jose?
Sure.
A little bit of an intro about yourself, and then we could jump into Palmera after that, like an intro.
Definitely. First of all, thanks for the invitation. Really, really glad to be here. I'm excited about sharing what we're doing at Palmera and everything related to DAOs and on-chain organizations. So a little bit about myself. I'm Jose Ramirez. I'm from Bolivia. I'm a computer scientist. I have been building software for more than 10 years, and more specifically within crypto since 2017, when I started digging into the rabbit hole, and I didn't leave it until who knows when. And just a little bit about what I did within those crypto years. I was working for a blockchain enterprise so for two years. And then in 2020, I joined a crypto bank in Switzerland, and I helped building the custody system of the bank, basically for Ethereum. So a lot of smart contract, multi-sigs, audits, and the whole setup. And then 2 years later, in 2022, we started Palmera. So I'm gonna stop there so we can have more details after that.
Yeah, so just an intro on you.
Just myself, sure. So originally born and raised in Guatemala, had the chance to study computer science Georgia Tech in the U.S. Stayed a couple of years at Microsoft after that. Then I delved a bit into hardware, with some little software and running servers and stuff like that with a startup. Did it very well. But started reading about Ethereum 2015, 2016. I fell in love with the idea of a global state machine and kind of removing middlemen and just kind of all the new use cases. That's something that is not controlled by anyone, but you can rely to be there all the time. All the new use cases that will unlock. I fell in love with that idea. So started going deeper into Ethereum, moved to Switzerland. We started a hedge fund with a couple of friends there, and we realized that There were no essentially accounting solutions back then. There's only one called coin tracking, and it wasn't done with a lot of heart. So we built one called acquainting. So helped out quite a bit on that. Yeah, and then after that, I met Jose, and as he said, we started going to conferences. We got invited to this group that was essentially helping to advise the Swiss government on DeFi and stuff like that, and started doing hackathons and projects. And we kind of realized, because I was a little bit more into DAOs, I was kind of running a small trading desk, and I wanted to kind of subdivide essentially the teams to use their saves. I didn't want to pay Fireblocks. Fireblocks was very expensive, and it didn't make sense to me that we would rely on, even if it was MPC and a sort of EOA with some server configurations. So, I wanted to use safe, and it was impossible. So we started brainstorming with Jose. And that's how we, I guess, got started.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Andy, I'm also from Guatemala as well. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw your connoisseur of micheladas, which is I love micheladas.
Oh no, me too, man. It's funny because micheladas are like traditionally known as like a Mexican drink, I would say. At least I hear in the US, like in California, but this little Guatemalan place where I live, they make the best micheladas, and it's like surprising to me that a Guatemalan place is making good micheladas. But that's awesome that it's you guys are both Latinos. Are you guys? Is Palmera? Are you guys in Spain, or are you guys in Switzerland right now?
We're based in Switzerland.
So we're based in Switzerland. Just FYI, I think my Wi-Fi is doing great, so I think we can turn the high quality in the videos on again.
All right. Let's see. Should be able to now. All right, so you guys are in Switzerland.
Awesome.
That's cool. So you guys ended up meeting at so you guys met at hackathons and stuff like that, like at conferences, and then
like first local conferences.
We had a little group of people that was looking into helping the Swiss government formulate better opinions about DeFi. So we got invited into this group, and then that's how we met. And then we started going to conferences, Ethereum conferences mostly, and then we did a couple of hackathons together. And then we just really enjoy working together. We were also I don't want to say the only, but we live in a small town in Switzerland, Zug, which is called the Crypto Valley. So there's not that many Latin Americans, and even less Latin Americans working in crypto. So it's kind of, it's kind of weird intersection.
No, that's awesome. That I love that. That's how the world works sometimes. Like it's like two Latin Americans in Switzerland. I used to work I used to work actually now. I just changed jobs in the pharma space, and a lot of offices are in the pharmaceutical industry. So a lot of companies are in Switzerland for us, like our US or EU based offices, like headquarters is in Switzerland. Just a lot of pharma companies are out there, and there's not many Latino Americans like there. And then, like you said, in crypto too is even a smaller
that intersection.
So that's awesome.
And we're both very passionate about it, and I guess we've been following it for quite a number of years. So we also had that side, always kind of looking into what new, what were the new things happening and how they work. And we're both computer scientists, so kind of like understanding how things work kind of really is something that we pursue quite aggressively, just understanding that.
Yeah. So let's get a little bit into what Palmera does then, for the people kind of not familiar. So would you say then like Fireblocks is kind of like the enterprise, or like the heavy hammer that's like too big, and you guys saw a problem there where it was too expensive or not really accessible to
Yeah.
small and medium businesses?
Yeah, I mean, we mostly wanted to kind of help groups manage assets rights on chain. And there's many ways to do so. A lot of people, are using Safe. Palmera is completely based on the Safe quote protocol. They're a fantastic team, and they've been doing a great job for the last couple of years. And honestly, I think they have over 100 billion in TVL, which is super impressive. And yeah, mostly what we wanted to do was kind of helping these teams that were managing their assets on chain, and kind of extend that to the level that it can replace Fireblocks, and we believe it can do so much more than that. Really, the idea is we're building an aggregation layer for composable tools. So we are like, the heart of it is Safe, but there's a lot of composable tools out there that are really amazing, such as Superfluid, Saddler, Hats is also a fantastic tool. There's other tools that are not as composable, but they're also very helpful, such as DWork, Charmverse. And really what we're trying to do is essentially create a sort of glue to bind everything together. And the reason why we kind of got to this conclusion is because there are many organizations out there. Most people, when they refer to crypto and organizations, they think about DAOs, and DAOs are a fantastic way to essentially decentralize organizations. But we, in the current definition, if you kind of like look at the way people are running DAOs, is essentially has this sort of political system attached with the technology. And we believe that's one iteration that it will keep evolving and it will keep changing. So the only way that groups such as ours can essentially kind of build experiences with this is like if there's a layer of composable tools that essentially can work together and are interoperable, kind of creating this sort of like Lego structures for organizations. And really our drive, where we want to be, is essentially helping groups that want to manage assets on chain without charging them what Fireblocks charges institutions, which is a very specific use case, but we don't believe the majority of use cases, the majority of users or org can essentially afford to pay such business model. So we're looking for more creative ways for us to support organizations in the future. And right now it might be a bit niche, but to us, the most exciting thing about crypto is incentives and groups. Like, I think that's the superpower of crypto, which is something very magical happens when you kind of look into a project and then you like it, and all of a sudden you buy your NFT or you buy the token, and all of a sudden, since it's decentralized, you kind of feel like it's yours. And like, I don't think there's many things previous to crypto that gave you that. Maybe, the football fans in the US or the soccer fans in Madrid, even though you're not from Madrid, you feel like, you're part of Madrid. And I think that's something that is very similar to what the communities are building with this incentives, that gives you this like sense of belonging, which is combined with an incentive in a borderless way. So we think there's a lot of area there that we want to build around, and we just want to be part of this ecosystem of composable tools, and we're essentially building Google to put them together for groups.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I agree with you too. I think like that relationship between like consumer or end user and brands, it usually was reserved for the highest echelons of like society. So in terms of like, like you say, like Real Madrid, Arsenal, Barcelona, but even like in fashion, it would be like Louis Vuitton or like Goyard, like it would be like, those were the brands that usually had the success in and thinking about it as a brand, and it was like a sense of belonging or community for whatever reason, like it happened at the smaller scale too a little bit, but I think that's something that's like the crypto world's been learning since we've moved into this model. It's kind of like, like for example, for me, like as a creator, like I would never consider myself like a brand or whatever, but like that's kind of what it is. You're gathering other humans that either find you funny or find your content funny or agree with you in your alignment, like in terms of your thought process. So like even for like DAOs, it's like yes, there's the structure part, but it's like with like you could build a coffee DAO and everyone just likes coffee. Like that's what it is, like it could be
I think that's one of the main points where we hear, right? Like that's, having an open system that is decentralized, permissionless, and where anyone can just join and be part of the community that he belongs to or he thinks he belongs to. So I make it in a decentralized way, make everything easier.
Yeah, and like you said, fire blocks for like, let's say, fire blocks can make sense for, like a financial institution or like Flamingo DAO or something like that. Like that's like a big DAO with like, going after art and making like large, heavy acquisitions. But like something like my coffee DAO as an example, not everything needs that big of a solution or an expensive solution. Sometimes you just need to be able to, on top of like, the great thing about like Farcaster, what I see with DAOs is like it's great at like coordination and some of the other pain points that DAOs used to have like last bull run, which is like, people weren't participating or gas cost a lot of money to like vote or to like, submit proposals or whatever, because it was all on ETH1 or like the mainnet basically versus in base where it's like cost pennies. And like the US, in a place like the US or Switzerland, like obviously spending $1 or less or €1 to like submit a proposal, it's not the end of the world for us. Because we live in high income places, but like $1 in like Guatemala, like, I'm going to think twice before I even propose anything because that's a lot more, I mean,
Yeah.
$1 in Guatemala is also not too bad, but I'll think about it a little bit more as opposed to here. I'm like $1, like, oh man, I buy things for $1 all the time. Like,
Yeah, especially with inflation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
And I wanted to ask a little bit more. So, and pardon if this is like the, a very crude way of describing what you guys are, but would you say that, it's a safe wallet that manages other safe wallets?
It's right now the easiest way to, I guess, simplify what we do is we are big slaves where you manage multiple safe smart contracts. Like that's the easiest way, and that's what the majority of our users use us for. And I think that's the best way to start right now. But really what we want to do is we want to essentially be one of this set of companies that is essentially leveraging composable DAOs to build experiences to essentially facilitate the life and the operation of on-chain organizations to the point that maybe at some point they will replace traditional companies. And this is potentially, in a place like Switzerland or the US or maybe France, this kind of sounds a bit funny because why do you need to do this? Why do you need to get companies to be decentralized? And it's not really that is the decentralization. What is the main aspect here is more like the ease of use and how cost effective it is. I was doing some analysis, like let's say if you look at what's the cost to start a company in a place like Nicaragua, it's around $1,200. That is, on average, someone in Nicaragua makes around $2,000 a year. So that's 65% of their average income per capita. So that's a massive effort. If you do it in any other day or two, it'll be a couple of cents. right now, the average number of days to incorporate a company in the world, everywhere, is 20 days. Whereas with a multi-sig, you can put something up and essentially a couple of minutes, right? But you need to go through the experience. You need to do it automatically. It takes you seconds, right? So those are essentially like very real advantages to essentially organizing groups of humans on chain. And the other thing is that, when you're incorporating in developing countries, we got different people that are running the countries. It can swing from left to right very aggressively. The institutions are not as strong. It's more, corruption is a lot more common and more obvious, I'm going to say, because I think there's a little bit of corruption everywhere. And this is the sort of places where on-chain organizations really make sense, because even if the country, something happens and then you have a dictator, cannot take away the resources of the common or the organization. And I think DAOs are fantastic as a way to decentralize, but I hope in the future, we're not only using on-chain organizations as DAOs, where the main component of it is being decentralized and therefore it cannot be censored, but more as a mechanism to essentially manage assets in countries where you cannot rely on the local jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's a big that's a big that's like a lofty goal. That's a very lofty goal, I'd say. It's not like it's funny because like it sounds like, from the outside looking in, I would say like, it just looks like you're like you said, helping manage assets, but like really that's like a huge problem that you're trying to solve, and it's a very real problem, like you said. Like in Argentina, you could have, on top of inflation, it can go, like you said, right to left very quickly, and even in the US, like same thing, right to left, like in terms of presidencies. And somewhat our institutions are a little bit like not impacted as much maybe when it goes that way. I'd kind of argue that they kind of are a little bit, just based on the amount of executive orders that get executed here in the US when that happens. And but yeah, in other countries, like like you said, in Guatemala or in El Salvador or somewhere else, like the institutions they can get influenced a lot more, and there's corruption everywhere, like you said. So wow, yeah, like if that's what you guys are trying to, I mean, I think even the fact that
that's a long-term vision. We got to.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, no, I understand. That's a very long-term vision.
Yeah, but it's like we're more in it for like, essentially the power of a global state machine that is uncorruptible. And I guess I'm a solar punk in the sense that, like, at some point there needs to be jurisdictions that are okay with organizations being on chain. Maybe I shouldn't say with so many libertarians, but maybe at some point there's going to be ways where you can prove taxes to your authorities using, CK techniques and things like that. So I still think there is, I think at this point, at least personally to me, kind of going the full anarchist way doesn't seem viable. So I think there needs to be essentially a process where we can reveal information to the government, because taxes do have a place right now. And I don't think that's going to go away, because just as a society, I don't think we're ready for that, maybe in the distant future. But I do believe that it's gonna be a lot of steps, and this is why I think kind of building composable DApps to kind of put together this operating system for groups is so important.
Yeah, I think with what you're saying, it almost sounds like, are you familiar with Atlas, like the Stripe tool?
I'd heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it helps companies, I think even the goal of like trying to get people incorporated and coordinated, not coordinated like all the way, but like even just to like form, coordination of the wallets or assets, and even like incorporating into an LLC or, some kind of on-chain body.
the
Like
demand
that's
there is towards the US, right? I
yeah.
don't think
Atlas is
it's
towards the
in
U.S. Yeah, I actually just saw. I'm sure you guys saw it. Some guy on Farcaster posted like a way to incorporate an
Oh, yeah.
LLC via Frame. Yeah, yeah, and it's like a Swiss LLC. So like, I mean, the great thing with it, you're saying what you were saying earlier, where you're using I forgot the word that you were using, but like basically other technologies, you can incorporate those like superfluid. You can incorporate that technology to help.
Yeah, at the end,
Like here's
at
your
the end,
one.
we just want to make
Mhm.
all the available tools that are there be be ready for any organization to use. So we can be like the entry point for any new organization, like it's coming from the traditional world or more from like a NGO point of view. They want to get into like and get the advantage of crypto, just go to our system and they can do like streaming payments, they can do swaps, they can do governance, they can do like the treasury management side as a composable entry point for that.
Yeah, it's kind of like Dan and B and like the Merkle team. It's like the Legos. You guys are going after like almost like the Lego building of like what like the entry point, and then once you're there, it's like, you know, if you want to manage your wallets, it's this, you know, here's this tool, and if you want to incorporate into an LLC in this country, here's this tool that you could use, and it's all one, you know, front end or one interface. Um, so that's awesome. Yeah, and if you wanted to do, like you said, taxes on the back end, like here's another tool that you could kind of plug into that helps you build some kind of report to submit to authorities to on your tax liabilities or whatever. So that's awesome. That's it's a good thing to look at.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
wanted to
super
talk to you a
exciting
little.
because if we can
Go ahead.
like if we can tap into, I mean, I think of money as like essentially energy, right? So you know, when you have a lot of, you're really rich, you get a lot of energy to give, and other let's say organisms, groups, people can tap into that energy to create other results that may be used. And so you got, you know, uh, you got one brain, one CPU can do certain amount of processing. You can kind of use that and spread the money in a more efficient way, regardless of orders. And I do agree that there needs to be some level of anti-money laundering. And I don't know where you're in that spectrum, Bermejo. I guess here in Switzerland, they're very strict with this kind of stuff. So we're used to it. And we're being in crypto for a bit and seeing like some of the sort of scams that people can do, because I was like a pure libertarian. And after you kind of seeing all that chaos, now I'm not so much of a libertarian. I was like, maybe a couple of rules are okay. And yeah, but essentially putting it all together into one roof and leveraging composable dApps, and making it so the tools are interoperable. And I think there's going to be different sort of political systems for this on-chain organizations, the same way that we have it seen, you know, accounting systems such as GAAP or other sorts of accounting systems. I think there's going to be, or different management structures. And I think there's going to be an opportunity for different UXs and UIs to essentially instantiate a certain modus operandi or a certain mindset of how you should run an on-chain organization, all using essentially dApps that can digitalize, where you can trace things. And hopefully, as the technology advances, we can add more privacy layers to make sure that essentially privacy is baked in. And you only reveal what you need to reveal if you need to reveal it, and if you want to reveal it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into the wash trading or
Yeah.
money laundering. That's like a whole can of worms in
Yeah,
itself.
that's a whole can of worms. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. I think like that's a. I think we should have a chat, me and you, on that. as a whole. I want to talk about Palmera. I want to make sure people can see kind of the use cases. And I saw it very quickly for me, like when I was reading your guys' documentation. One, I like the name too. The colors and the logo are great.
Thank you. We put a lot of effort.
Yeah, just
we're not designers.
Yeah, no,
we have some fantastic people to work with us, but yeah. Because if Jose and I try to design a logo, oh Jesus.
Oh God. That's where I'm at right now, man. I've been trying to come up with logos for trying to come up with a unified brand and yeah, it's not good either for me. I was like, I need to outsource this a little bit. Speaking of the compostable apps, so I know you mentioned superfluid. So just because superfluid, at least from what I've seen, I've only seen it used in alpha fronts, for example. How are companies or people that are using Biomedical, how are they using that? From my understanding, and you can tell me if this is right or wrong, is let's say I spun up on you. Let's say I had a new initiative, right? The initiative is I want to open up an office in the US, right? And as a, company allocator or money allocator or person allocator, whatever, resource allocator, I want to spend, let's say 100 ETH to do this initiative. Would I just spin up a safe wallet that's literally, we'll call it US expansion team or something like that? And then with superfluid, instead of moving 100 ETH immediately into it, we could start a stream that would move it from one wallet, let's say your treasury wallet to this US expansion wallet, and it would kind of go, as a stream essentially.
Yeah, there's a lot of people using streams in different ways. I think probably the most popular one is for token vesting. So, they would kind of be able to say, okay, there's going to be a specific stream that's going to run at a specific frequency. I think you can get it all the way to the blocklet frequency. So you can essentially get paid a specific number of tokens every unit of time. So a lot of people are using it for that. I know Sadler have a bit more advanced functionality in terms of how you create a vesting function with different cliffs and then kind of different proportions, kind of so you can code up a stepwise function. Basically, I think Superfluid is also getting into that. I'm not sure if they've released it yet. So that's one thing. The other thing that people are doing is just to kind of for subscription. So I haven't seen that in the WoW yet, but a lot of people are kind of, instead of paying Netflix, your $10 a month or whatever it is now, you can essentially create a stream. So you will be paying, this service provider over a specific amount of time that can be a lot smaller. So you can essentially pay pro rata. So if you want to cancel it, it'll cancel it pro rata. So that's another very interesting use case. And then there's the other use case of some people are want to essentially deliver some sort of milestone, but we've seen that when there's a milestone or there's clear gates, right now within DAOs, the modus operandi is you would set a bounty at the end of the milestone, and if they achieve the milestone, they get the money. And that seems to be working quite nicely.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was thinking about it initially. At first, it was since I work at enterprises, this is what I'm kind of familiar with. Is I'll sign even for let's say the logo design, that you guys were doing. You can be all right, when you do when you submit version 1 of the logo, where it's rough 10 rough drafts or whatever. That's milestone 1, and on milestone 1, I'll pay you 25% of the fee that we agreed to or whatever. And then we'll have revisions, and then I'll do another 25%. And then once you're done, I'll do the last 50 or whatever once all the deliverables. So I was kind of thinking about it in that way as well. But yeah, I think you're right. It seems
if it's more milestone based it's like that. If it's like 4 contributors that are being paid in the token or vesting, then we'll see superfluid they use quite often, or also Sailor. They're both great companies, great projects.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's cool. It sounds like you guys are, like you're supporting that within your tool natively. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the main big use cases that we saw. So that's why we integrated like as one of the top in the top priority about utility.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. No, I really like where you guys are headed in terms of like your stack essentially, and like how you're integrating all these other technologies and just enabling companies or decentralized organizations kind of do their operations. So with that said, like last bull run, like there was a lot of DAOs made, but like a lot of DAOs, have lost activity. Like they haven't had as much success, getting people to vote or participate or do proposals. How do you guys feel like this next bull run will be now that, because from what I'm seeing from the outside end is like, I'm just seeing a lot better tooling available to us, like including you guys, to make these more exciting essentially. So like, like with frames, you now don't even have to go to a separate app to vote, for a proposal. You could actually just read it all in the frame. Obviously it's not like the best experience, but like, you really don't have to leave now with Farcaster, to go to these separate apps to take action or participate in a DAO. So like, what do you guys think will most likely happen, I guess? Like, what is some speculation that you see there? Do you think we'll have like a,
in terms of the
revitalization of DAOs, we'll see more DAOs? Yeah,
that's a pretty big question. I heard that there's a study that says that DAOs, in reality, of the people are actually active, very rarely they cross the Dunbar number, which is kind of like your physiological limit or cognitive limit of people you can actually have a personal relationship with. So there's this kind of like aspect that there's a limiting factor because like people need to trust each other. So that's why I think we're not seeing kind of this, like, we're seeing very relevant orgs, right? But we're not seeing massive orgs, right? You're not seeing DAOs that have like 30,000 people working on it day and night, right? And I think it's kind of related to the trust level. And I think that's because a lot of, even though DAOs are supposed to be decentralized, in reality, they're very trust bases, right? So I think there needs to be essentially still an emergence of better tooling that fit with the culture within the DAO, so people kind of don't rely only just purely on trust. And I think trust is always key in human relationships. Like, I don't want to live in a world where I don't relate to people. Maybe there's some other people, but at least me personally. So I think we still need to have better tooling, and there's places like there's tools like eWork that I think do a really good job for this. But I still have that limitation. From the way I see it, there's always going to be, when there's like incentives, there's going to be people that pretend like they're part of the group to get the incentives and then jump off. And I think I foresee that continuing. And I think there's still a lot of things that can be done on chain that require protocols that are decentralized and that need some sort of like human intervention, and therefore you need a DAO. So I think that will continue to grow. I don't foresee a world where there's a million DAOs, to be honest. There's going to be more, and I think the ones that will remain here, like, probably we are not going to see like voting systems where it's like everyone needs to vote on everything. That makes no sense. Why? Because people have expertise, because there's finite amount of time, because there's status that needs to be shared amongst different agents for them to understand what's going on. And the bigger that number, that communication costs grows exponentially. So I don't think one vote for everything makes sense. So I think there's a lot of good companies creating now delegation systems. I think delegates are working to a certain degree. I still think that the incentives on the delegates needs to be improved, because whether you vote or you don't vote, it doesn't seem to matter, right? There's some sort of voting, people get delegated, and then if they don't participate, they don't vote, they don't grow in their expertise. And, there's no negative incentives for the delegate, and there's also no positive reinforcement, right? Because they can get paid due to securities laws and things like that. So we've been following what Uniswap has been doing with Unistake, which is very interesting, of essentially creating a staking mechanism where once you stake, you will get a percentage of the fees. From my understanding, this still hasn't been fully approved, but it's already designed. And when you're staked, you're essentially forced to either take the vote for yourself, so the voting power, you keep it, or you delegate it. And the people that are being delegated to are getting paid. So I think that's a very exciting concept. I think it's borrowing a little bit from synthetics. I think they put them in the white paper too. And I think with the whole restaking narrative of eigenlayer and all of this, it also, I think people will be in that mindset. So yeah, I think that could potentially be a change. Jose, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I agree with you, but I think from my end, I will bet more on the new innovation on like different governance structures. I mean, you can see one of the best example of that is Optimism DAO, right? That we're the first one to really create two different separate like structures within the DAO. One like the Citizens House, but it was more just very well-known people within the community having some voting power, and on the other side, like the token holders that were delegating their token to another set of delegates. And between those two chambers, they were deciding different aspects of how the governance and how everything is going to be evolving within the DAO. I think that's one of the models that was emerging, and that is going to be like a base for new innovations, and having like different ways to just people voting or delegating their tokens for certain actions.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're going to see new models or structures of how DAOs operate. Yeah, because I've even seen a couple where it's like very similar. I think it's kind of what you were saying about the synthetics one, or the Uniswap one, where it's like you can delegate. Like the delegation one seems to work, when it's like one vote. It's kind of like democracy, like the U.S. government kind of. It's like the House of Reps and the Senate. Like it's so funny to see like all these different models popping up of like how to operate. Yeah, and they're gonna need the infrastructure, like you said. So hopefully you guys will be kind of in the middle of all that, which will be great.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, we try to just kind of see where things are moving, and we try to be in touch with the best tools out there that are doing things in composable ways, and just incorporate them into our experience and keep them interoperable, right? Because I think it's so complex. Organizing humans is really complex. So I think the only way we're going to be able to achieve it is like if people kind of, we got composable tools, and then you got aggregators. And I think we're not going to be the only one doing that. So yeah.
Let's take a quick break. Hope you're enjoying this episode. This episode was made possible with the support of my premium subscribers: Seattle Dog, Mike Finals, KO, OG, Lacresse, Johan, Young Weekend, Topos, who's a new subscriber, as well as the F1 address that ends in 2A94. Thanks again for your support. If you'd like to receive exclusive drops, access to token gated content, make sure to subscribe to my Hypersub. I'll put a link below. All right, let's get back to it.
I guess before you answer this question, how big is your guys' team right now?
We're 10 people.
10 people. Okay. And you guys are both still kind of like coding for the most part, or
Also
are
more
you
than
on a
I.
team of coders?
I still work quite a bit, and then I'm kind of the quick and dirty guy. It's like, here's a concept, and then it's always like, ah, shit, oh, you guys do it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But
Hey, I mean,
think,
yeah, you know,
yeah, I think
go
in this
ahead.
day and age, if you don't code a little bit yourself, it's kind of hard to keep tracks of how things are evolving.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was kind of my question is like, how do you, you know, it's changing so quickly right now. Um, how are you guys kind of keeping your pulse on all these changes and like what some people want or discussing? Like, is it just going to conferences or just talking with a lot of people?
I think it's a mix.
Yeah,
It's a mix of a little bit of everything. You have to be, of course, like within conference, like getting the alpha from what the users want, where like things are going, but also very active within new social networks as Farcaster, like all the crypto Twitter, when you can see the trends and just how to jump on it. Where is the opportunity to grab more users and give more utility to the community.
yeah, but definitely still conferences are key. It's still kind of going back to the Dunbar law. It's still very much like that. Like people want to work with people they know. And conferences is the best way to meet in person.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've debated kind of starting my own DAO as well, sometimes, and I thought about it like long and hard. I was like, I think I would cap it to like 100 people because that's like the number I feel comfortable with. You know, like anything more than that, I feel like it would get too much like in my head to, you know, to know everybody, to, like you said, trust people and stuff like that. So yeah,
but that's like theoretically, like if we can figure out ways to kind of maybe create more kind of subgroups, and this kind of goes back into the module that we've been working on, and that we just we submitted a safe proposal and got approved about creating hierarchical structures, right? Because that's when you start relying on the technology, so you don't need to trust people, and you start adding that aspect. Then the scaling of your org or your DAO can significantly increase if that's what we want to do.
yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, because I was even thinking about it like where hypothetically, like you could even have like, you know, let's say like 50 or 100 is like the number you feel comfortable. Um, you could just have like 50 or 100 in, you know, like in the US, and then another 50, 100 in Europe. And then there's like a roll up between, you know, both of those groups. So it's like the same, I guess they're like two different DAOs at that stage, but you know, like they could kind of roll up into one common cause. It's just they're their own small little group, you're your own little small group. You know, it's kind of like the US office and the Europe office, kind of like that's how I think about it. And then somehow we can consolidate the requirements from both and move forward, hopefully.
Yeah. Or something that, I mean, we've been discussing this with hosts and some other colleagues, like just essentially creating more sort of like departments where there's like a committee that has some sort of special permission, perhaps in the shape of an NFT, that get elected by either the delegates or the actual stakeholders. And this community groups kind of are experts in engineering, or are experts in marketing, or experts in dev relationships, or and that based on that kind of fund them and kind of have this smaller group of people take directive, right? And then you can start building into those sort of structures. And I don't know, in the last 2 years, I feel like the narrative regarding DAOs has been less political, which I really liked, because before it was everything flat. Like even us, like creating a primitive for groups that is just our just opinion just completely necessary, we would say hierarchical, and then everyone would jump on us regardless of what it was. But there's like a sort of yeah, it's just very political in that sense, where it should be more about like, hey, look at the features, like with access and permissions, we can delimit. You cannot trust everyone the same the moment they get. You can give everyone an equal chance, but like the closer you get to bigger numbers, there should be essentially a trajectory that maybe the trajectory is not limited only within the DAO or that common cause, but like maybe that person has a trajectory in other DAOs and has a certain level of trust within the Web3 community. Yeah, but I think then with on-chain structures, you can start to do those sort of things, so you're not limited by this dunbar number or limitation.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, I like that you're also thinking about it from like the psychology behind it as well. Because like, yeah, because like it's not even like it's not a technical limitation. Like the tech is like, you can make this 30 million people if you wanted to. The whole world could be in a DAO if we really wanted to. But it's like,
network state if you go as far as biology. Yeah.
What are some of the challenges you guys are experiencing right now as like as a you're still a startup, right? Like 2 years, Like, what are some of the challenges you guys are experiencing?
And
you don't have to shed anything like too crazy.
I can start. We got a couple. I think the one thing is essentially the way we monetize. So it's still not something that to us is super clear, and we're still kind of looking into ways to do it. Initially, it was just like, let's create a SaaS platform, but like, nah, that's not the way to do it. I don't think people want the convenience, but I don't think right now they're willing to share. So then it's potentially kind of the way we maybe surface certain composable apps, where you can still choose whatever composable app you want, but there might be some that give us more of a kickback fee for bringing volume. And for that volume, maybe we kind of prioritize them in the UI. So the default is the specific one that gives us a good fee. Obviously that is secure, that we trust, and all of this. So that's essentially a problem that we have. The other thing is just kind of getting trust from the community takes a while. It's one of the main reasons why we did the safe proposal for our module. And that's because it's essentially an instant, once you get approved in the proposal, it's like a stamp of approval, right? And our module itself, also can tell you super weakly about this, but it's essentially establishing like hooks within the safe that change a bit the default behavior. So the security for us there is super paramount. And also kind of people need to trust us, and it's completely logical for them to trust us, but we still need to have mechanisms where, let's say, us as third-party developers can create modules where there's some sort of process where those modules get credibility without risking money unnecessarily. And I think those processes are still not very established into the standards created by the community and adopted by the community, which is still something that we don't have. Yes, you have the audits, but audits, there's a spectrum of quality on the audits, and it's kind of hard to know how thorough they were. Then you have the credibility of the auditing firms, which kind of there's some volatility to that quality because it's humans doing the work. So it could be that maybe their rock star guy was or girl was on a vacation and then he didn't catch the last couple of mistakes he usually catches, or she. So I think that those is kind of getting credibility, monetizing could also be. It's also a problem without having to have tokens and things like that.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Monetization is always. Have you thought about doing like? I'm sure you have, but like I don't know, like a small fee, like a percentage fee.
Like for a SaaS?
Yeah, maybe not like a SaaS, but more like kind of how like I don't know how it would work, but
One way that we were
Um,
thinking it was more on all the apps that we were integrating. A couple of those they're already integrating with like referral fees, like Savior or Tarswap, for example. So if you bring them volume through our experience, you get some percentage of the fee. So that's one of the ways that we can grab some income.
Yes.
yeah, it's kind of almost like an affiliate
exactly.
link, almost
Exactly.
at that point. Yeah,
It's exactly that. It's
Yeah.
exactly
And
that.
even Safe
Yeah.
right now is we're working with them with the Safe Pass points program. When everyone who is creating a Safe through our experience are going to be rewarded by Safe points, and we got like affiliated ID within the Slack protocol.
awesome. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think you guys might have to hop soon. And I have just two more, if that's okay with you guys.
No, of course. No, we
Yeah,
got
don't worry.
time. I'm at 7 p.m.
Oh.
You got us.
Okay. All right. So I know you brought this up, like, it was kind of one of my questions, like, what are the risks right now? And it sounds like trust is also kind of like not that there's anything wrong with you guys, it's just like company, like getting your name out there and then building that establishment. And like you said, you have the audit. So like the audit's one thing that helps people sometimes feel comfortable. Also if Safe, like you said, gave you like a, even if it's like a marketing digital stamp of approval, like that also makes people feel good.
But the proposal,
too,
the proposal is essentially money for a bounty protocol, which probably you heard of it, Hats Finance, which is super interesting. Where essentially they give the rewards and different white hackers participate to then get the bounty and find bugs and things like that. So I think that's super good. And then it was also cool because then, like for us, it's just kind of like, I don't know what's the best analogy for this, but we felt like we were building the module. We would go to this group, so we'd be like, guys, we have this for this. Like, this is super necessary. And they'll be like, yes, this is very important, but we have 1,000 other things to do right now. So we kind of fell between we're very important, but not urgent type of classification. So we also wanted to see how much people actually agree with us if this was truly necessary, because for Jose and I, it's kind of like, scoping permissions and kind of limiting the liability in terms of like what happens to the money is like kind of key. And most DAOs don't have this. It's kind of the owners of the multi-sigs. Like you have a couple of owners spread around all the multi-sigs, and if something happens to the private key of those owners, it's essentially, okay, you maybe lost one signer out of the three, or maybe it was one of two, and now those funds are lost, right? So that's problematic. And yeah, so for us, kind of like that delimitation of rights and permissions is key. So yeah, that's why we also wanted to see what the community thought about it. And yeah, we got a lot of great people vote for us. Support from groups like Snapshot, Cargo Key, Nexus Mutual. So yeah, multi-skill. So yeah, that was super cool to see. It was the kind of yes, this is something important and we all agree, and we're voting with our money, which is at the end of the day legal. And then it's also a great way for people to know about what we're doing and kind of spreading the module, right? And gain trust.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense. Yep. That's unfortunate. I know what you mean. Sometimes it's like it's urgent, but we have other fires that we need to like tackle or something. So it's
Yeah.
it sucks.
Yeah.
Humans. Let's see what else do I have here. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the. So I know you guys recently deployed. You guys worked with frames recently.
Yeah.
Off on Farcaster. Can you talk to me a little bit about that one? Mostly like I think it was to create a safe within Degen chain, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we saw there was essentially the safe contracts were not in the decent chain. Fosin, one of our senior engineers, spent a fair amount of energy trying to figure out how to deploy deploying the contracts wasn't that bad. It was more the RPC nodes or the Web3 provider nodes with tracing enabling. Because on a safe, like for a chain to support safe, you need to have essentially infrastructure that is indexing the transactions coming from the safe. So if you need something to kind of say, okay, here's a new safe deployed, I'm going to track that, and then there's new transactions coming from that address. That transaction is essentially a transaction within a transaction. So you need to pull that transaction out, then kind of understand what it is, calculate USD balances, all this kind of stuff, and also provide a queue where essentially the multi-sig process can happen. Because let's say we're all in a multi-sig and we have a threshold of 2 out of 3. Let's say if you and Jose sign, someone's going to sign first, and that signature of the payload of the transaction needs to be stored on an off-chain component, which is the infrastructure. So we have to do all of that for Degen chain. And then we were thinking about like, how do we get people to test this? And we decided to essentially build a frame that allows you to create safe in a bunch of different chains, just, with a click of a button. Honestly, it was more of like, let's see how many people we get with this. And honestly, the acquisition speed was super cool to see. People love it. We got a lot of attention. Yeah, and honestly, it's great. Just frames is I like the way they solved it. At the beginning, I was a bit kind of like the developer experience was kind of not great because there weren't frameworks for it, right? So I had to before we saw Frogs, which is by Paradigm, and that's the key that they have, we were actually kind of sending HTML to a server for it to render it and then turn it into SVG. So then we can put it into the meta tags of the frame, because you cannot really render HTML. You're rendering. Sorry, it wasn't HTML. It was JPEGs. You can either render text as buttons, or you can render images. That's it. And then you kind of have hooks, so when people click on the buttons, you can pass that payload into the server and all of that. But it's quite limited. But we were super happy people use this, because at the end of the day, that's when you need those software so people use it, and that's the fun thing about it.
Yeah, and it seems like more. Like it seems like every day there's more apps or tools creating on top of Degen chain too, and even which is great. Like I'm still trying to figure out layer 3s and all that. Like
it feels like a mega, like a huge DAO with with things around it. I don't know how to explain it, right? It's just kind of like Farcaster is the center, and then you interact with people and you get content and you try things out, and then you also kind of socialize, and then you see something cool in your feed or someone shares, and then try this out. And it's so the friction is so low that you're just willing to try more things out. So I think it's super powerful, and for people that are looking for users such as us, it's great to acquire users.
Yeah, also I will add something in there.
Go ahead.
That for me it's very interesting how it all get bootstrapped. when they airdropped, right? Like the Degen token to kind of this small community within Farcaster. You can give tips and then you get more tokens. And then from that, you start like this L3 where the native token is like the Degen chain. So I think that makes everyone like has much more will to like try and build things, innovate things, because you kind of the incentive was already there for everyone. So it's just, okay, let's keep using it and let's keep building. And yeah, that's how everything is just popping up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering when it's going to go outside of just us agents, right? And it's going to kind of open up to a wider audience. Yeah.
I mean, even Farcaster feels a little bit like that too. So I feel like, whenever, I mean, I guess this was like a conversation recently on Farcaster, but it was like, whenever Farcaster expands past us, like the people that are in it right now, or even crypto Twitter, then maybe that's when Degen chain also expands past, crypto users as well. Or it becomes kind of like an oasis for crypto users, like all the crypto Degen apps are in there, and then Farcaster becomes more like, like a Twitter where it's like open. It's not just crypto or dev talks or whatever. It's like, people are talking about cooking and Legos or whatever, like non-crypto stuff. So yeah,
it's a great way to kind of like see what other crypto people are outside of just kind of shit posting on Twitter. Yeah, because I feel like it's a bit more, you can find more niche things, and it's kind of cool because then you kind of just find things in common that before were just like, the only intersection of hobbies was like, we both do crypto. And it's like, he was reading that book too, because it's just smaller than Twitter right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Have you guys thought about coming to some talks over here in the US? I think when I saw like all the talks that you guys were doing, it was mostly in Europe.
Mostly in Europe. Yeah, mostly in Europe.
Yeah.
We missed December, which we generally like to go. I think that's a great one. Consensus, I don't know, feels very lawyer banker type. But I haven't been in years. Maybe it's changed. Maybe do you have any recommendations of what conferences we should be hitting up in the US?
I'll let you know. I actually, this year was the first year I started going to more in real life events. I had a kid recently, so that kind of took time. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, so now I finally went this year. I plan on going. If there's something in Latin America, I'm down.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's
something in Argentina or something.
Yeah, Quito seems to be doing quite a bit of things, so it's good. There's ETH Guatemala too, which is great.
Is there really?
Yeah, there's ETH Guatemala. There's a group all at you. So that's great.
I had no clue, man. That's awesome.
Plus, is in ETH Bolivia, even though crypto is completely illegal.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. We got to be a little bit more like El Salvador and at least accept Bitcoin at this stage. I send money to my dad. My dad lives in Guatemala, and I send money to him, and it's, oh my god, dude, it's so much money. And I'm like, I wish I could just send him USDC, and he knew how to do it, like on that side, like
I think there's Bitcoin. At least there's Bitcoin ATMs. I don't know if they have support. It'll be very weird for them not to have support for USDC at this point, but who knows?
Yeah,
so
especially with Base.
That's
so cheap, man.
With Base is super cheap.
My dad's also like lives in a ranch.
Nice. Where we're at?
So I don't know. Yeah. Huh?
What we're at?
Near Shela.
Okay. Cool.
So, yeah, my family's we're from Shela. Yeah.
Nice.
Or since we have Jose here, it's Quetzaltenango. That's like the
No,
official name of the city. Yeah, you don't have to worry. It's actually not that small of a city. It's like
It's
a
like
million people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
Zurich
not
is
like
only half a
tiny.
million.
Is it really?
Zurich, yeah, it's a small city.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. Where is it? I have to look where that is. Actually, where is that? Is that closer to like Italy or?
No, Zurich now.
Oh, you're in Zurich.
We're
My
in
bad.
Zug. We're in Zug.
but it's even
Oh,
smaller.
you're in Zug. Okay.
Yeah, that's like,
I've heard
I
of
don't know,
Zug.
80,000 people, 50,000 people. But
Yeah,
it's
that's like
between
the town
Zurich
I
and
grew
Zurich.
up in here in the Bay Area. My town in the Bay Area that I grew up in is like 100,000 on a heavy day.
Nice. Nice.
Let's see. All right. Let's see what else I have. Yeah, the Degen chain. Yeah, a lot of activity there. So I'm glad that you guys are able to tap into that a little bit. Are people able to go now? Like, are you guys still like, am I able to go into Palmera and create my own wallet management if I have some?
Yeah. Right now we've been the past we're mostly relying on the safe experience to build safes or to create the safes, deploy the safes. And now we're putting that into our own experience. So right now, if you're in Degen chain, you gotta use our frame to deploy your safe, and then you can load it in forth. You'll see it in the dashboard.
The release,
Yeah, so if people want
the
to,
release with the
Go ahead.
new feature to create safe is coming very soon. So anyone can just
Very
be able to create that from the main experience.
oh, okay, yeah, that was my question. Yeah, like if people should create their safes first and then go to your platform and then kind of aggregate them, or it sounds like they'll be able to natively do it in your app soon, which is great.
And the other thing that is important to understand is that some people call us a fork. We're not a fork of Safe. We support Safe. So whatever you do with Palmera, it will be supported within the Safe UI whenever Safe decides to support the chain. So that's something really, really important, that we are using the official Safe contracts, and we're built from that, essentially the Safe protocol.
Yeah,
So if you deploy with us,
I think that's a great.
Yeah,
I think that's a great call out because, yeah, we don't want people thinking,
yeah,
that their thing isn't supported in the Safe app or whatever, So that's great, and that's like the whole ethos of crypto.
Right.
Like, you're able to, what you built here, you can import it somewhere else, or if there is another aggregator or competitor, you'd be hypothetically able to move to that as well. So yeah,
definitely.
all right. So I have one more. Other than before we get to this part, you guys are gonna laugh. So I used to ask everybody in the podcast, because I used to call this bichos because it was supposed to be like bite size, like tapas. It's supposed to be like bite size news and information. So one of the questions from when I used to be called that is, what is your favorite snack? And I've asked everyone that I've done an interview with this. So now I'm asking both of you. Snack, yeah. So like, not a meal, although sometimes it can get to a meal a little bit. Like, think tapas. What's your favorite snack?
Snack, I mean, I will go. You're gonna laugh. It's more like Greek yogurt with some protein and some fruits there.
All right. The healthy choice.
Yeah. I mean, I love M&Ms. Okay. Well, M&Ms, great snack.
M&Ms, there you go. All right. Yeah.
I had some at the office, so every time I went to get coffee, it's the snacks. And like, the M&Ms were always there. Not good.
That's dangerous, man. Yeah, I know what you mean. That's hilarious. All right, well, thank you for that. Let's see. So, thanks again for jumping on. Really appreciate it. In terms of explaining what Palmera is and how to use it and I'm hoping, more people, you know, especially with the price of Degen, we're not going to talk about the speculation of that, but like, some people have a lot of Degen, and some of it is like shared. So, hopefully people are being smart about managing their funds as a whole, not just with Degen, but like ETH, base, anything really. So if you have anything high value, always have a multi-sig. And if you want, to manage all those wallets, hopefully they'll consider using Palmera as well, especially if they're running an on-chain company. So, where would you like people to, where can they find you guys? So either individually or, at, Palmera and Farcaster.
Yeah, give
where
them a follow.
Where would you like to send people?
Palmera. Key vocals we're up to in Farcaster. And you can find me as Andy P, just like you see on the screen here.
Same for me, Joe's there.
All right, welcome back. This week's cast off, and for those not familiar, is where cast off is where I want to hear from you, the audience. So this week's episode cast off question is: what's your feeling on DAOs right now? Where do you think we are? Do you feel like they're still useful? Is there a place for them? How are you feeling about the tools around DAOs? Just like Palmera, there's other tools as well, as we discussed in the episode. So thanks again. If you've made it to the entire episode, I want to thank you kind of from the bottom of my heart. If you're listening to this episode on another platform other than Pods, make sure to go collect those episodes on Pods Media. If you're on Pods, make sure to subscribe from your favorite app. You'll be notified when episodes drop. I hope you enjoyed this new episode. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this. Feel free to share this with anyone that you think might be interested in the topic. Also, feel free to reach out to me and let me know, which people or topics you'd like me to discuss in the future. You can get in touch with me via the show notes. There's a text me feature, SMS rates apply. You can reach out to me on social media if that's a little bit easier. All right. See you guys next time.